Off the Grid has made quite a splash on both the Battle Royale scene in general, with prominent FPS, Fortnite, and Apex Legends streamers like Ninja, Shroud, Tim the Tatman, and others streaming and partnering with Gunzilla on the launch of the game, which has been publicly available on the Epic Game Store for a few weeks now. The launch of Off the Grid also marks what is probably the most high-profile Web3 game launch the industry has seen thus far, given the AAA quality of the game, depth, replayability, etc., etc. With all that said, there's some super interesting overlap between Off the Grid and DEADROP that we should talk about in terms of both its gameplay and design, as well as the potential extraction and Web3 elements depending on decisions that Midnight Society may or may not make. This is a hot topic, we gotta talk about it. Buckle in, this is gonna be a good one. Let's go. So in case you're watching this and you're not sure what Off the Grid is, it's a brand new third-person Battle Royale game developed by Gunzilla Games, a new studio with involvement from filmmaker Neil Blomkamp of District 9, Elysium, Chappie, and Gran Turismo fame. I don't like Gran Turismo, but anyway. It's set in a future where humans fight it out using cybernetic limbs in a world that is obviously influenced by Blomkamp's signature style. The game also prominently features Web3 elements with the game's Extraction Royale mode, allowing players to find hexes in the game, extract them via gameplay, and then open the hexes like loot boxes containing in-game items, cosmetics, and more. Interestingly enough, players can also buy and sell these very same items on an in-game marketplace. It's important to note that at least as of now, the marketplace is restricted to in-game use only. You cannot buy or sell items in Off the Grid on OpenSea, a separate app, or anything like that. It's important to note that Off the Grid does have a companion app, but the marketplace isn't currently a feature of it. Off the Grid also, somewhat controversially in some people's eyes, features an optional monthly subscription service called Off the Grid Pro. For $11.99 a month, you can access the game's Battle Pass, which is not available separately, a monthly bundle of exclusive cosmetics, weekly tournaments, and allowance of 500 of the game's in-game currency called Gun, which is on the chain as I understand it, the ability to earn Gun faster than the standard rate, and the ability to sell items in the marketplace. Without Off the Grid Pro, you can buy items on the marketplace, but not sell. So let me explain Off the Grid's currency, Gun. Gun is a currency that you can add to a wallet if you wish, that you can actually earn via your in-game actions and challenges. It's not like Apex coins that you just type in a credit card number and then you add them to your account. You can actually earn these. In most games these days, you have daily, weekly, and monthly challenges, which give you experience or something like that. In Off the Grid, they give you Gun. This is the currency that you can then turn around and use in the marketplace. It's also required to open the hexes that you can extract during your matches. Kind of like needing keys to open cases in Counter-Strike, but in Off the Grid's case, you can earn the keys in the form of Gun just by playing. And again, you can earn Gun by selling items that you don't want on the marketplace, assuming that you're subscribing to Off the Grid Pro. Everyone will have an opinion on this, but I think it's important to note that the value of Off the Grid Pro is somewhat tied not only to personal preference, but also the strength of its Battle Pass. Since subscribing to Off the Grid Pro nets you the Battle Pass, it's up to you to decide if $11.99 a month is fair, or if you'd rather pay $9.99 or whatever you normally pay in the other games that you play to buy the Battle Pass outright. But it's also important to note that buying Battle Passes in most games, in theory, is actually very similar to a subscription fee because you don't own your Battle Pass contents in most games. If you don't complete it in time, you'll lose the ability to do so ever, unless you're playing a game like Halo Infinite, which allows you to permanently unlock Battle Pass items after purchase. When you really think about it, it's really not that all. It's almost like you're leasing the ability in most games to unlock items, and if you don't unlock them, you lose that ability ever. Anyway, now how does all this relate to DEADROP? Well, that's the debate. We don't know exactly what DEADROP's economy and monetization are going to look like, and there's been much discussion about this over time since the game was initially announced, and an interest in the Web3 space was expressed, Founders Passes and Visor Cortexes were minted, so on and so forth. Plans can shift and may continue to shift. Until something is actually implemented in the game, anything can change, and it's important to remember. I think there's certainly some good practices in Off the Grid that I like that I believe DEADROP can and should mirror. My interpretation of DEADROP's early plans were basically in line with some of this stuff that Off the Grid is doing anyway, when a lot of people were climbing to the highest mountaintops they could and screaming about how scared they were about high-risk, high-reward gameplay and so on. It's funny that a lot of these same people that are now playing Off the Grid are going, wow, this is awesome. When people actually see some of these concepts implemented, suddenly things start to click, and Off the Grid is kind of doing that for the whole space. First and foremost is the hex extraction. Everything in this video, by the way, is my personal opinion and not the official, this is what DEADROP is doing. The idea of going on raids and dead drop, finding rare and exciting loot or cosmetics in the game world, and extracting them has always been something that I've loved. I personally think it's the extra pizzazz that extraction shooters need. At some point, simply extracting some good guns, armor, ammo, and supplies gets old, which is why extraction shooters have to do wipes. They need to give you an incentive to play again. Eventually, you get enough of that stuff and there really isn't anything to keep you going. Anyway, this is an idea that I love and I feel that dead drop should keep. We absolutely should be able to find rare cosmetics and items in the game world and get the thrill of working to try to extract and survive the other players, NPCs, cleaners, whatever, and extract them. I have zero doubts that this is still in 12AM's plans, I'm just stating it for the record. Next up is a question that we don't have the answer to. While I would be surprised if 12AM shifted away from its plans to have an in-game marketplace, you never know, I do love that Off the Grid allows players to earn currency that can be utilized in the marketplace through in-game action, just by playing the game. You can then use that currency to buy cosmetics that you want. In theory, you don't have to spend any of your real money on the game ever, but you can still buy cosmetics. And while you do need to sub to Off the Grid Pro to sell stuff, that's your decision. Which is kind of funny, by the way, because whenever video game monetization discussions come up and everybody starts to get their feelings hurt and outraged, people always forget that it's your decision. If you don't like something, don't buy it. You're an adult. If the price of oranges gets too high, you're probably just going to buy grapes or apples instead. It's your call. Who really cares? Save your energy and outrage for something else. But anyways, personally, I absolutely do still want to see Dead Drop feature an in-game marketplace where items that you extract can be bought and sold. This should also help 12AM's revenue stream, as I assume there will be a transaction fee for every item sold, similar to what Valve does on Steam. Then we get to Off the Grid Pro in general. Again, I have no issue with this, and if Dead Drop were to do something similar, I personally think it's fine. Personal opinion. Using Off the Grid as an example, players have the choice of subscribing or not. If you don't have Off the Grid Pro, which I don't currently have in full transparency, you can still play the whole game and experience it as the traditional game. You can still even extract hexes, open them, all that. But the main reason that you should be playing the game to begin with is that you like the game anyway. So without spending a dime, you can play Off the Grid as a traditional battle royale and have a good time. Midnight Society has always stated that this is their mindset and plan for Dead Drop as well, and I don't expect this to change. I personally think that optional subscriptions are going to become a more prominent part of the gaming industry going forward in general, and I think including a battle pass with it really isn't a horrible idea as far as value goes. Again, I haven't bought into it in Off the Grid, and it doesn't bother me. I don't have to buy it, that's fine, it's there, whatever. Moving on to actual gameplay, Off the Grid does have a ton of verticality to it, something that we know is also core to Dead Drop. Buzzing around the map at high speeds and Iron Manning from roof to roof is certainly a fun and unique experience, especially in the multiplayer space. I think that Midnight Society should absolutely look at some of the traversal options that Off the Grid has implemented, including the vertical zip lines on certain buildings for a quick trip upward to high ground, and consider using some of these things in Dead Drop districts here or there. There's one more big gameplay thing though: load-up drops. Dead Drop will be more of an extraction shooter than Off the Grid is, we know that. Off the Grid is more of a battle royale with an extraction element, while Dead Drop is more of an extraction shooter, perhaps with some battle royale elements depending on the final decisions in the game design. Off the Grid has inherited the Warzone plague, or embraced it, I guess, and made loadout drops a central feature of the game. While this is again personal opinion, I think loadout drops are a cancer to the battle royale genre, personally. When PUBG launched, the thrill of dropping in and having to think on your feet, play in and out of whatever situation you got yourself into, with the weapons and gear that you find, is epic and led to a ton of stories that you just had to tell your friends, right? It was like a narrative within itself, every single match. When Warzone introduced loadout drops, the entire game became homogenized. Everyone just raced to get their loadout, a certain 2 or 3 guns that everyone has in their loadout dominate, a meta is formed, and it just becomes boring. While Off the Grid spices things up a little bit, making you find and extract attachments and truly build your loadout, so to speak, I don't care. I don't want anything to do with loadout drops in any game. Please God, stay away from this idea of Midnight Society. I just have to say. It goes without saying that if Dead Drop does indeed move forward with Web3 elements, it needs to replicate what Off the Grid has done and be a good game first. It's not the Web3 stuff that makes the majority of players interested in Off the Grid. It's a quality AAA battle royale. While it does have its issues, especially in regard to performance and a super annoying announcer who makes terrible jokes all game, you get the idea. And I expect Midnight Society to deliver on this front. This is a studio with talent who've worked on franchises like Call of Duty, Halo, and Gears of War after all, If you notice, Gunzilla is totally focused on all their marketing, so on and so forth. It's on the game itself. They're not throwing around these buzz terms that the Web3 crowd loves, right? That stuff's in the background. It's all game first. I've always expected Midnight Society to do this. The other stuff, if you implement it right, it just becomes background noise and it's not even a thing at all. Oh wait, I'm not done. Off the Grid has live action stuff built into the game, like during loading screens and so on and so forth. Of course, a filmmaker is involved in the actual studio, so it does make some sense. It does do some world building. By the way, Midnight 2 is coming out soon, and Midnight Society, call me. So I know that this video has been a lot, and it's again just my opinion, but it's certainly an interesting topic to dive into and consider. I really think that Off the Grid has made a mark for the industry and pushed some boundaries, forcing people to reconsider previous positions and opinions, especially as it pertains to marketplaces, on-the-chain currencies, so on and so forth. Our best hope is that developers, including Midnight Society, look at what Off the Grid has done, take away the best practices to implement in their games, and refine the ideas to make them even better in the future. I'm a big believer that in order to succeed, DeadDrop and virtually any game must indiscriminately implement its ideas and not apologize. DeadDrop nor any other FPS can launch and be just like every other game out there. They have to be unique and they have to bring something exciting. That's why the idea of high risk, high reward gameplay, where you can acquire, extract, and lose your items when you die, is integral in my mind. So, with all that said, I appreciate you all watching. Subscribe to the channel for more Midnight Society and DeadDrop coverage, and if you do that, we'll see you in the next video. Or on Twitch when I'm streaming, or Twitter, or TikTok, or Instagram, Facebook, Discord.
This video is sponsored by G Fuel Energy, a sugar-free energy drink available in both powdered and canned form, and you can get 20% off using code MAYOR at discount. That's just MAYOR, M-A-Y-O-R. Right in checkout, it's going to get you 20% off. There's a ton of good flavors, including this new Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty flavor. If you need a competitive edge, guys, something to keep you up on those late nights, or just get you hyped for whatever the latest release is, look no further than G Fuel Energy and use code MAYOR to get a discount on your order and support my content and channel at the same time.